This conference will now be recorded.
So in the previous session, we have discussed about data types, and we have discussed what exactly a data type and what it indicates, what categories of data types that we have in Apex programming, and what exactly this primitive data type and what data types are comes under primitive we have discussed in the previous session. So we have discussed Apex provides two categories of data types. First one, primitive data types. Second one, yes subject data types. Okay, primitive, yes subject. Now, here you can raise a question, sir, what is the difference between the basic difference between these two? Now, let me explain. Suppose, for example, I have a single value. Okay, I have a single value. Like, for example, 47. It's a single value. That means what type of value it is? It's a numerical value. Now, I'm having the value 90,000. It's a numerical value. I have a string type of value. Like, for example, some Rakesh Kumar. Rakesh Kumar. Now, this is the name of a person or a customer or a lead or anybody. So now, whenever if you want to store some single value, it may be either a numerical, it may be either a string or anything. In order to store a single value inside the variable, we have to go with primitive data types. So primitive data types allows us to store a single value inside the variable. Now, in some cases, I want to store a complete record. Okay, I want to store a complete record. Like, for example, I want to store an account record over here. That account record contains ID, like as I'm starting with a 001, okay, 4692. Like, for example, assume that this is ID. Name of that account record person is some Suresh. Rating value some hot. Industry some banking. Annual revenue some 40 lakhs. SLA some gold. Active status some yes. Like that. Now this is a complete record which contains ID value, name value, rating value, industry value, annual revenue value, SLA value, active status. So if you want to store this record, then we have to go for a subject data types. So to store a single value, we are using primitive data types. To store the records, which includes a group of values, then we can go with a subject data types. This is the basic difference. Okay, so the basic difference between primitive and a subject types are primitive data types allows us to store only one value, that too a single value. That's it. We can't store multiple values. But if it is a subject data type, it allows us to store this complete record. That record contains ID value, name, rating, industry, like that. So many values may be available in the record. The whole record we can store within a single variable by using a subject type. Okay. So to store single values, we can go with primitive. To store the records, we can go with a subject types. This is the basic difference. Now, so as part of this primitive data type, we have discussed a collection of primitive data types like integer, long, double, decimal, ID, boolean, string, date, time, date time, blob, and the object. These are the 12 primitive data types that we have in Apex programming. Then what exactly each primitive data type indicates? Now let me explain one by one. Let me digging into the concept. What is this integer, long, double, string, boolean, everything we'll see one by one. What type of data that each data type will accept, we'll see one by one. Now, let's see. The first one, string data type. Now, so what exactly the string data type, what type of data that we can store? Collection of characters. Can't we store a single character? For example, I want to store the gender of a person. Like for example, some male, M. I want to store the name of a person. For example, some Ram Kumar. I want to store an email ID of a person. Like for example, ramesh.tiwari some gmail.com. I want to store address of a person. Like for example, flat number 206. So now some Rama residency, some Kukatpalli, road number 2, Hyderabad. Now, I want to store the contact number of a person. +1 800 898 6677. Like that. I want to store this kind of details. It may be a single character, it may be a collection of characters, which includes alphanumerical values, which includes a special characters also over here. In this kind of situation, if you want to store some character values, it may be a single character or multiple characters or alphanumerical values along with special characters, then we can go with the help of string data type. Generally, when you go to some other programming languages, to store a single character, they will be having char data type, which can store only one character. To store multiple characters, they will be using string data type. So, other programming languages offering two data types: char to store a single character, string to store multiple characters. So, but in Apex programming, we don't have this char data type. Even though it may be a single character or multiple characters, always we have to store within that string data type. So, string data type allows us to store either a single character or multiple characters also, which includes alphanumerical values along with special characters also. Okay, understood the concept here? Now, so now in this case, let's see. Whenever we are storing these string values, each string value should be enclosed with single quotes. Okay, single quotes. That is a fundamental rule. Now, in this case, each string value should be enclosed with single quote. That is a fundamental rule as part of your Apex programming. Now, the whole address. Now, so whatever the string values that we are going to store, string values will be always enclosed with single quotes. That is a fundamental rule. Why? Because when you go to some programming languages, string values will be enclosed with double quotes in few programming languages. But in Apex programming, each string value should be enclosed with single quote. That is a basic rule we used to follow. These are all are the principles of Apex programming language which we have to consider upon writing the code. Now, here you can raise a question. So generally, phone number is a numerical number. But upon storing the phone number, we are giving plus. That means country code. We are writing +91, +61, +81, +1. Like that we are writing. This a plus is nothing but what? Character. This is space character. And then This braces character. This is a hyphen characters. So we have characters and then numerical. So it's a alphanumerical value. So which should be comes under string type. Always phone number values, fax number values are comes under string type, not numerical. Please remember the point. Okay, of course it might be having the numerical numbers, but whenever we are storing the phone number and the fax number, we can include the country code also. At that time country code will be having some alphanumerical values, so that it will comes under string type always. Now, so in this case here, when we come to the string data type allows us to store either a single character or multiple characters inside a variable, which includes alphanumerical values along with special characters also. Now, so in this case, each string value should be enclosed with single quote. That is a fundamental rule in Apex programming language. Now, here we can raise a question, sir, how much memory space will get allocated for each string variable? In this case, depends upon the number of characters you are going to store. Depends upon the number of characters you are going to store. It will calculate the number of characters, and for each character, 1 byte of memory will be getting reserved. Depends upon the number of characters you are going to store in the string variable, those many number of bytes of memory will be getting reserved. Now, in this case, let's see. Here, how many characters are available? Only one character. So it will be occupying 1 byte of memory. In this case here, it will be having the characters. How many? 9 characters. So it will occupy 9 bytes of memory. Now, in this case, how many characters are available? 23 characters. So 23 bytes of memory. Here, how many characters? 52 characters. So it will be occupying 52 bytes of memory. Here, how many characters, including space also? 17. So it will occupy 17 bytes of memory. So, depends upon the number of characters you are going to store, each character will occupy 1 byte of memory here. This is the fundamental principle of string data type in Apex programming. Okay? Understood the concept here? Now, make a note of this one. It allows us to store either a single character or multiple characters inside the variable which includes alphanumerical values along with the special characters also. Along with the special characters also. Each string value should be enclosed with single quotes. Each character in the string variable will occupy 1 byte of memory. 1 byte of memory. Done with these points? Done? Now, let's see. So now let's come to a most important point now. So as part of configuration, we have observed so many data types. Upon creating the field, we have selected the data type for our field to indicate what type of data the field can hold inside it. So now tell me in this case. Now let me go to my Salesforce arc. I'm going to my Salesforce arc now. I'm going to my application now. Inside my account object, for example, I'm creating a new field. Go to the edit object, click on fields and relationships link, click on new button. Now it will ask you to select the data type here. These are the data types. Now tell me from these data types, which data type will store string values? Text, okay, right. Any more? Text data type allows us to enter text values, that means string values. Now, any other data type, text area,
Exterior,
okay,
text, email,
text, okay, text area rich control, okay,
email,
email,
Pick list.
phone, fax,
phone number, okay, right, phone, geolocation, okay,
Pick list.
hmm. Pick list fields, pick list multi selects also, URL data types. Now, URL means what? Website name. Website name contains what? String values. So, in this case, whatever the fields that we have inside your Salesforce object, which are having that data type as text type. That means each text field, text area field, text area long, text area rich, text encrypted, geolocation, email, phone, URL, pick list, pick list multi-select, all these fields internally storing what? String type of values. So this all these fields are referencing string data type internally by default. This is the functionality. This point is very, very important because when moving forward, I'm going to discuss about a concept called as ORM, object relationship and the mapping. There, this point is very, very valid, very, very important. So I'm giving those points from here itself. Okay? Now, make a note of this one. Each text field, text area long, text area rich, text encrypted, email, phone, URL, geolocation, pick list, pick list multi-select, fields will get reference the string data type by default. Done with this point? Next. Second data type, Boolean. So what do you mean by Boolean data type? What type of values it allows us to store? True or false? Can it store both the values within a single variable? No, only one, either true or false, only one value. So whenever if you want to store either true or false values inside a single variable, then we can go with the help of a Boolean data type. Now, so now tell me from this field types, which type of fields will reference a Boolean data type now? Pick
Checkbox.
this? No?
Date,
Checkbox fields.
currency.
Each
Yes.
checkbox field, okay, each checkbox will be having two states that already we know. Checkbox may be selected, checkbox may not be
Answer.
selected.
Checked
If the
answer.
checkbox is selected, it will store the value what? True.
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 If the checkbox is not selected, it will hold the value as false. Okay, so each checkbox field internally referencing Boolean data type by default. Okay, now make a note of this one. It allows us to store either true or false values inside the variable. Now, each checkbox field will get reference the Boolean data type by default. Each checkbox field will get reference the Boolean data type by default. Next, the ID data type. ID data type. Now tell me, ID data type allows us to store what? Alphanumerical, already we have string.
Auto number.
Already we have string.
Unique number.
Record IDs, right. Whenever if you want to store only the record IDs, it may be either 15 characters ID or 18 characters ID. We know what is 15 characters ID, 18 characters ID of the record already we have discussed in our starting classes of configuration. So whenever if you want to store the record IDs, which contains either 15 characters or 18 characters ID of the record, we are using the help of ID data type. Now, so now tell me in this case here. Now in this case, from this data types, which field types are referencing ID data type now? Auto number, no. Auto number doesn't have 15 characters. Auto number is comes under string. External ID, no.
ID field.
Text.
Number will store numerical. Record ID contains alphanumerical values, which is purely case sensitive. No, text is comes under string. That is already over. Hmm.
Could you please scroll down, sir?
Straightforward, available, visible on the screen. No formula. Already we know formula return type can be either 8 types. That will be text type, It may be like as email, it will be of type date or date time or time, or it may be Boolean also, it may be number, it may be percent, it may be currency, but it should not be ID type. Hmm?
Date and time.
Somebody is telling that just now.
Date and time.
Lookup relationship, right? Lookup relationship. Now, so now lookup relationship means what here? Now tell me, for example, assume that I'm having contact object. Upon creating a new contact record, we can select that account record also, to which account this contact is associated. Now tell me, between account and contact, do we have any relation or not? Yes. What type of relation? Lookup relationship. Now, so in this case here, this is a lookup relationship field here. Is it a lookup relationship field or master detail relationship field? How do you know lookup? It's not a mandatory, it's an optional field. Lookup fields are optional fields. Master detail fields are mandatory fields. Now tell me. Now here I'm selecting the account record name. Just you can click on lookup icon, select that parent record name. That means account name. Whenever I'm selecting this account name in this lookup field, what it will store? Name of the parent record or ID of the parent record? ID of the parent record. Why ID? Why not the name? Right. Already told you. During the relationship concept, I told you very clearly, upon creating the child records, whenever we are selecting the parent record inside the lookup field or master detail field, it will store always ID of that parent record. It won't store the name. Because if it is storing the name with the same name, if you're having multiple parent records are available, then it will raise some ambiguity. It will raise some confusion to which parent this record is associated, to the first parent or second parent. It will be difficult to recognize. So that always it will store ID of the record here. So each ID field inside your object, lookup relationship field, master detail relationship field, and external lookup relationship field. Your hierarchical relationship field, these fields are always referencing ID data type internally because these are storing ID values, record ID values. It may be 15 or 18 characters ID will be storing inside that. Okay, each id field, because id field is common for every object in Salesforce, including standard, including custom. So each id field, lookup relationship field, master detail relationship field, external lookup relationship field, hierarchical relationship field, these fields are referencing id data type internally by default. Clear? Now make a note of this one. ID, it allows us to store either 15 or 18 characters record ID inside the variable. Now, each ID field, lookup relationship field, master detail relationship, external lookup relationship, hierarchical relationship fields are referencing ID data type by default. Done with this? Next, date data type. So what exactly the date data type and what is the use? Now tell me what type of data that we can store in date data type. Date values. Whenever if you want to store the date values inside the variable, then we have to go with date data type. Like for example, if you want to store the birth date of a person, or the joining date of a person, or the living date of a person, or it may be product's manufacturing date, or the product's expiry date also, or a position open date also, position okay milestone date also. Like that, if you want to store okay some date value inside a single variable, then we can go with the help of data type, which can store the date and the month and the year value completely. So that in order to store the date values, we are using date data type. So now tell me which fields are referencing this date data type now inside your object. Date fields. Each and every date field will reference date data type internally by default. Like the similar way, time data type to store time values. It may be 12 hours format or 24 hours format also, both it will support. Upon storing the time values, we can store the time value in terms of hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds also we can able to store. So in that case, each time field inside your Salesforce object will reference time data type internally by default. Okay, like the similar way. One more, date time. Date time data type allows us to store what? Date and time stamp value. In order to store date and the time both within a single variable, then we can go with the help of date time data type. Like for example, when you go to your object records, we are having the fields called as created by and the last modified by. When you observe that fields, it will be holding both the date and time value inside that. When you go to the record fields, at the last you will be having created by and the last modified by. So now these fields will be holding both the date and timestamp value okay in a single field. So in that case, if you want to store both the date and time value within a single variable, we can go with the help of date time data type. So upon creating the field inside the object, there is a data type called as a date time data type. Each date time field will reference date time data type internally by default. Okay, clear up to this one? Now make a note of this one. Date data type. It allows us to store the date values inside the variable. For example, a birth date, joining date, expiry date, etc. Each date field will get reference the date data type by default. Like the similar way, time. It allows us to store the time value inside the variable either in 12 or 24 hours format. Now, we can store the time value in hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds also. Note, each time field in the object will get reference time data type by default. Next one, datetime data type. It allows us to store both the date and timestamp value within a single variable. For example, created by, last modified by, deletion date, etc. Note: each datetime field in the object will get reference the datetime data type by default. Data types are the base for every programming language. Without the data types, we can't define the variable. Without the variable, we can't write any business logics. This is a fundamental, basic point of every programming language. So this is the first step upon entering into the programming language. Done with these points? Next, integer data type. Now tell me. So what exactly the integer data type? What type of data it should allow?
Numerical data.
Numerical. Okay, right. Now, correct. So now if it is a numerical here, I'm having 2 points over here. I'm having this numerical number some 40 and 169, 45,000. And we have 45 lakhs. 9.25. That means decimal values. 10.315. Now tell me, will all these values will be acceptable in this integer type? No. Basically, integer data type allows us to store only those numerical values without any decimal point. Okay, without any decimal point here. Okay. Now, sometimes you can raise a question, sir, I want to store some decimal numbers also. Not only the integer part, I want to store some digits after the decimal point also. For that one, separate data types are available here, like as a double decimal. Okay. Now, so integer data type allows us to store only the numerical values without any decimal digits. Now, so now tell me in this case here, whenever we are storing these integer values, that means the numerical values, okay, each numerical value will occupy 4 bytes of memory. Each numerical value will occupy 4 bytes of memory. You can store the value either small also, like as some 14, I'm storing the value 14, or I'm storing the value some 92 lakhs also. The value may be either small or big, it will occupy 4 bytes of memory internally by default. It's a fixed size. We can't change this. Now, upon storing the numerical values in this integer data type, it is having a range. It is having a range of values. Integer value should be between the range minus 2 to the power of 31 to plus 2 to the power of 31 minus 1. This is the range. 2 to the power of 31 to, okay, plus 2 to the power of 31 minus 1. This is the range which has been given by Apex programming. 2 to the power of 31 means what? Let's see. Let me go with the calculator here. Now we can able to use 2 to the power of 31. So just you can use that, okay, x to the power of 5, 2 to the power of 31. The value is 214 crores 74 lakhs 83,648. Okay, minus 214 crores 74 lakhs and then 83,648 to 2 plus 214 crores 74 lakhs 83,647. Okay, this is the range. Upon storing the integer value inside the variable, the value should be between this particular range only here, not more than that. If the value is more than 214 crores, it will show the error message. It won't accept that because the value is out of range. So this is a range we'll be accepting by integer data type. Now, sometimes you can raise a question, sir, I want to store that higher values or the larger values. Like we are having few customers whose business revenue, whose annual revenue will be 400 crores, 500 crores, 1000 crores, 1 lakh crores, 5 lakh crores per year. So in that case, how to store that much of larger values? For that one, we have one more data type that is called as long. Okay, long data type. Okay, so in this case here, integer data type allows us to store the value between the range minus 2 to the power of 31 to plus 2 to the power of 31 minus 1. This is the range given by Salesforce. Okay, clear? So each integer variable will occupy 4 bytes of memory. Now, so now tell me here, when coming to the fields, what fields will be referencing this integer data type now? inside your object, whatever the fields are available, which fields will reference this integer data type? Number, okay, right? No, phone will be comes under string type.
Auto number.
Hmm. Auto number will be having string values. Currency, okay. One more. Your marks, percentage, right? So now each number field, currency field, and the percent field will be referencing integer data type over here. Clear? Now make a note of this one. Integer data type. It allows us to store the numerical values inside the variable without any decimal digits. Without any decimal digits. For example, 890, 14, 45 lakhs, etc. Note. Each integer variable will occupy 4 bytes of memory by default. Integer variable value can be between the range minus 2 to the power of 31 to plus 2 to the power of 31 minus 1. Note. Each number field, currency field, and percent field will get reference the integer data type by default. Each number field, currency field, and the percent field will get reference the integer data type by default.
Sir, percent field include
Hmm.
decimal as well,
In
no?
this number fields, currency fields, and the percent fields, we are having the option to indicate whether it can store only integer part or will it store a decimal part also, that we can
Okay, okay.
decide. In that one, there is a property called as number of decimal digits. There is a property. In that property, by default, it is having zero. That means zero decimal digits. That means purely integer. If you want to store decimal digits also, then we can decide how many digits you would like to show after the decimal point as part of your percent also, number also, currency. Depends upon your selection, it will be referencing automatically.
So why can't we use string value here?
No, because string value will be characters. It's a numerical, right?
In string we can use numerical also, right?
No, no. Because whenever we are enclosing with the single quotes, it will be considering as a string internally.
So it only allows the numerical.
Right. It will allow only numerical. We no need to enclose this numerical values in single quotes. Only string values we have to enclose with single quote.
Okay, sir.
Numerical values we have to pass directly.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Done. Next, the second one, long data type. So as of now, we have discussed integer data type allows us to store the values between the range 214 crores plus or minus. But sometimes, if you want to store some larger integer values, which will be having the value more than 214 crores, at that time, if you want to store that larger integer values within a single variable, we can go with the help of long data type. Simply, we can say long data type is an extension for integer. Okay, it's an extension for integer. Integer is having the limitation of up to 214 crores plus or minus. But if you want to store more than 214 crores value, like 500 crores value, 600 crores, 1000 crores, 1 lakh crores, 10 lakhs crores, at that time, we can go with the help of long data type. So long data type also same like as our integer data type, but it provides a facility to store larger integer values. Okay, larger integer values. So in that case, upon storing that long data type values, each long data type variable will occupy 8 bytes of memory. It will occupy 8 bytes of memory. Integer variable is having the fixed size that is 4 bytes, and each long data type variable will occupy 8 bytes of memory here because it is allowing us to store more than the integer range. So now in this case, upon storing this long data type value, the value should be between minus 2 to the power of 63 to plus 2 to the power of 63 minus 1. This is the range. Okay, this is the range of values for long data type. Plus or minus, okay, 2 to the power of 63 here. This is the range given by Salesforce. Now 2 to the power of 63 means what? It will be having very larger integer value over here. Let's see. 2x to the power of y, 2 to the power of 63. See, this much of larger values we can able to store. Minus this value 2 plus 807. This is the range. Okay, this is the range of long data type variable over here. Not only 214 crores, we can store larger integer values also inside that with the long data type variables. Okay, that's what here each and every currency field, number field, and then percent field will be referencing with a long data type also. Because that already told you. In number field, how many digits number you can store maximum? Number or currency or percent, what is the maximum number of digits that we can store? We have discussed during configuration concept, during those field types, not 10. We can store maximum of an 18 digit number inside that. It may be number field, it may be currency field, it may be percent field. It allows us to store maximum of an 18 digit number over here. So here also we can able to store, okay, 18 digits also as part of this long. That facility is available to you over here. Okay, now make a note of this one. Long. It allows us to store the larger integer values without any decimal digits. Without any decimal digits. Each long data type variable will occupy 8 bytes of memory. We can store the value between the range minus 2 to the power of 63 to plus 2 to the power of 63 minus 1. Each number field, currency, and person fields will get reference to the long data type. Done? Next one, decimal data type. So basically, decimal data type allows us to store numerical values along with decimal digits also. Like for example, in some cases, I want to store the height of a person, like some 5 feet, okay, 10 inch. So we are indicating that, okay, 5.10. Now, I want to store the weight of a product, like some 22 kgs, 455 grams. We are storing that. So now in that case, sometimes I want to store the value of a pi, which is having 3.1416 like that. Sometimes I'm performing the multiplication division operation 10 by 3, which will be having 3.3333 like that over here. Okay, now in this kind of situations, whenever if you want to store some numerical numbers inside the variable along with the decimal digits also, then we can go with the help of decimal data type. So decimal data type will store okay decimal digits also. Not only purely the integer part, it can store integer part also and the decimal digits also both. Now in this case, as part of this decimal data type, it is having some set of ready-made methods which are used to round up the values as well. Here I'm having 3.1416. Instead of that, we can able to round up to 3.15. Here we are having 3.3333 like that. I want to round up to 3.34. So if you want to round up the values to the next number or previous numbers also, whatever the roundup functions are required, all the roundup functions are available inbuilt inside this decimal data type. So decimal data type provides a collection of ready-made methods which we can use to indicate to round up the values also. And along with that, we can decide after this decimal digits, how many digits you would like to represent. You want to show only 2 digits after the decimal point, or 3 digits, or 4 digits. How many digits you want to show, that we can decide with the help of this ready-made methods available inside this decimal data type. So we have so many ready-made functions are available. Like we are having roundup function available. We have set scale method is available. With the help of that, we can decide how many digits you would like to show after the decimal point. And then if you want to round up the value to the next numbers, we can indicate that roundup functions as well. That specialities are available as part of decimal. That's what here, when you go to the currency field, each currency field will be referencing decimal data type internally by default. Whenever we are defining that currency field inside the object, that will be referencing decimal automatically by default over here. Okay, clear? Now, make a note of this one. Decimal data type. It allows us to store the numerical values inside the variable along with the decimal digits also. It provides a collection of built-in methods to be used to round up the values. To be used to round up the values. It provides a collection of built-in methods to be used to round up the values. Now, note. Each currency field will get reference the decimal data type by default. And the next one, double. This is also similar like as decimal. But in double data type also, we can store numerical values along with the decimal digits, but we don't have any round-up functions. It will be fixed. Whatever the value has been generated, that value will be fixed by that expression. But we can't round up the values and we can't decide how many digits you would like to show. This kind of round-up functions, okay, methods will not be available in this double data type. Now, it allows us to store the numerical values along with the decimal digits in the variable. But it won't provide any ready-made methods to round up the values. It allows us to store the values between the range minus 2 to the power of 63 to plus 2 to the power of 63 minus 1.
Sir, how much byte it will use?
Sorry? 8
How much
bytes.
byte?
8 bytes.
Oh,
Both will be occupying 8 bytes. It may be double, it may be decimal, both will occupy 8 bytes of memory. Done with this? Next, blob data type. So now tell me, what do you mean by blob? What is the full form of blob? Blob stands for anyone? Anybody is aware of database, Oracle, SQL Server, MS Access, anything? Those people might be aware of this. It is available in our normal databases also.
It's a binary large objects.
Now, blob stands for binary large objects. Blob stands for binary large objects. As of now, we have stored simple values like numerical value, boolean value, date value, string value, like that. So which are very small values, which will occupy 4 bytes, 8 bytes, 10 bytes, 20 bytes, 50 bytes max. But in some cases, I want to store the large content. Like inside my record, along with the record, I'm adding one attachment. I'm adding a file. I'm uploading an image. Like for example here. For example, whenever we are using this kind of functionalities over here. So upon creating our own application, we have used an image as a logo. Our custom image as a logo we have used. So now whenever we are going to be creating a record, along with the record, we can add some attachments. For example, I would like to store the position record, Java developer position. Along with the record, I would like to add an attachment. When you go to the related tab, I would like to upload one attachment file also. Click on upload files. I'm selecting a Word document over here. Automatically, that file also will be adding as an attachment. Now tell me how this attachment information will store inside the database. Attachment, it is not a single value. It's not a numerical value. It's not a string value. It is a file which contains some large content inside that. It may be having 1 page content, 2 page content, 10 page content, 100 page content also. It may be normal Word document, PDF file, Excel sheets. It may be like as image or a picture or audio or video, anything. In this case, whenever we are uploading these kind of attachments and the files inside my application, how this files content will store inside the database. In this case, this whole content cannot be storing inside a column because inside the database column, file can't be stored. So in that case, what it will do, whatever the file content that we have, it may be a Word document also, Excel sheet also, image also, picture also, audio also, video also, anything, whatever the file content that we have, it will collect the whole file content. That content will be converting into binary format. Binaries means zeros and ones. Whatever the file content that we have, it is converting into binary format. That binary format of content will store inside the database. Because file can't be stored inside the database table column directly. We don't have any such a databases in IT industry which can store the files directly in the database table. So that the file content will be converting into binary format. That binary content will be storing inside your database. In that case, whenever if you want to store this kind of attachments, files, audios, videos, pictures, at that time we are using the help of a data type called as blob data type. So blob is a data type which can store the binary format of an image or a picture or audio or video or any file whatever we have. In this case here, where we are using this kind of blob data type. So whatever the attachments you are going to store, each and every attachment file. And then we are having the document object here. We have static resources. All these three will be referencing internally blob data type. Each attachment object, that means attachment is a standard object in Salesforce, which contains all the attachments. And we have document object that already we know in Salesforce Classic we have used. So now each and every document object. And in Lightning Experience, we are having a feature called as a static resource, which contains all the images and the pictures and the files and everything. Because document object cannot be accessible in Lightning Experience, so to replace that document object, Salesforce has given a feature called as static resource in Lightning Experience. So each and every document object and then static resource and the attachment objects are referencing blob data type internally by default. Okay, clear? Now make a note of this one. It allows us to store the binary content of an image or a picture or a file or an audio or a video, etc. Note, each attachment object, document object, and static resources will get reference the blob data type by default. And the last one, object.
Sir, what is the maximum limit of
Sorry,
for this below? What is the maximum below
20
we
MB,
can store?
20 MB,
23?
20 MB, 20 MB.
Okay.
Sir, if more than 20 MB, what is the alternative, sir?
Now for that one, it will be we need to extend that capacity by contacting Salesforce.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No, both are same. Done. Next, the last data type of primitive, that is object. So what do you mean by this object data type? What did you understood with this word object? Object data type. No, those objects are different. This object is different. Okay. In configuration, object means stable. Forget about that concept here. Okay. Now, so as of now, we have discussed so many primitive data types like integer, which can store only integer value. Boolean, which can store true or false values. Date, it can store only date value. Time, it can store only time value. String, it can store only string values. Okay, like that. That means each data type is having its own significance. Each data type will occupy some specific type of value. But suppose, for example, today I'm searching for some content inside my database. Inside my Salesforce or in my Salesforce object database, I'm searching for some content. Now the database will return one value, only one value it will return. But what value it will return, I don't know. Sometimes it may return integer value, sometimes it may return string value, sometimes it may return boolean, sometimes it may return time, sometimes it may return ID. I don't know what type of value it is going to return. Then in that cases, how can we store that value? So for that one, I need a common data type. I need a generic data type which can store any type of value inside it. It may be integer also, string also, boolean also, ID also, date also. time also, anything it can store inside that. So in that case, in order to store any type of value within a single variable, we are using the help of object data type. So object data type allows us to store any type of value inside that variable here. It may store integer also, string also, double also, decimal also, anything we need to store inside this. In this case, here you can raise a question, sir, if object data type can handle to store all the types of values, then why should we go for these many number of data types? Like integer, string, decimal, long, why should we go for that? Because object data type can store all these types of values. Then why should we go for other data type? Because whenever it comes storing the data or value inside the object data type, it requires explicit typecasting. We have to convert the value into object type, and we have to convert the value back from object type to our own type. Explicit type conversion is required, so that we have to write some additional coding. To avoid that additional coding, we are using that, okay, the data types given by Apex programming. If you know what type of value the database is going to return, use that corresponding data type. There might be some situations where we are receiving some value from the database, but I don't know what type of value you are going to return. In such cases, we can go with the help of object data type here. Okay, clear? So object data type can store any type of values also, which requires explicit typecasting. That means the type conversions are required, so that we have to write some additional coding which will be impacting on your application performance. So that here, if you don't know what type of value you are going to receive, at that time only we can go with object data type. In the remaining cases, you can go with normal data types given by Apex program. Okay, now make a note of this one. It is a generic data type which can store any type of value inside the variable. But while storing the values inside the object data type, it requires an additional typecasting, type conversion. It requires an additional type conversion. These are the various primitive data types that we have as part of your Apex programming language. Okay, now the next one we have is subject data types that we'll see in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we'll see the is subject data type, what exactly is subject data type, how to use them, we'll see, and then how to define the variables by using the subject data types and the primitive data types. Tomorrow we'll see the concept of variables also, and then we'll see the concept of, okay, operators as well. What exactly an operator, what it indicates, we'll see in tomorrow's session. Don't miss these fundamental concepts here. Okay, now thank you.
Excuse me, Firoz.